All right, let's give everyone a minute as we begin to join. For those who joined us 2 weeks ago on our inaugural workshop of the year, we did that workshop in what's called a webinar, a Zoom webinar. And I don't know, it's hard to do a webinar when you can't see the people who who are participating. And so we've gone ahead and did this one in a Zoom room. There's a max number of people that we can fit in here, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay. Let's go ahead and we'll go
God
another
damn it.
60 seconds. Let whomever else is joining join us. If you're not able to stay the whole hour, that's okay. We'll go ahead and record this and share this with you and others. Um, while we're waiting for people to come into the room, let's do just a fun little exercise. I call it as a get to know you. So everyone here has the chat. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, click that little chat button. It's four from the left on your icons at the bottom. And in the chat, you're going to give us a number. Okay. And the number is from 1 to 5, and it is going to represent the area of real estate that you most relate to. Okay, so that may be the role you're in right now, or the role you want to be in, or maybe it's where you spend most of your time. And what we learned from our last workshop is amongst this group, about 80 something percent of us are either in acquisitions, asset management, brokerage, or development. So number one is acquisitions, two is development, three is asset management, four is brokerage, and five is other. Go ahead and drop in the chat what number you are. Okay. Um, this is less scientific. This is fun for me because I can start like just getting a visual of who we are. I put one as acquisitions. That's where I feel most comfortable, although I've been in all areas of those four. I started in brokerage, as many of you know, then went to into a land acquisition role, and then I went into development, and I pivoted to the institutional side of the business where I was in a debt origination and a development role, and then and now I'm, I guess, an accidental tech founder. So that's me. We're getting a pretty good sense of where people are as you go through. All right, that's the first one. Second, get to know you. We'll go one more minute, and then we'll get into the workshop. Cold front across the country. I'm sitting in Florida, where it's going to be particularly cold this weekend. I'm in South Florida, and we're going to have high 30s this weekend. It's just
Wow.
really cold for us. Just drop the temperature in Fahrenheit if you could. Drop the temperature in Fahrenheit where you're sitting. I think
That's a good
I'm
one.
guessing we're probably 60 right now. Geez, did I see an 11? Hopefully the one is still someone that's left over from our previous. Uh, all right, let's get going. Yeah, go ahead and drop that in though. That's a fun thing. So looks like there's a couple hundred of us. I'm going to do my best over the next 55 minutes to add some value. Our very first workshop was very high level, and that was intentional. I was sharing a framework. I'm going to share my screen now. I want to get much more in the weeds on the capability of AI to relate to your process map. Let's go ahead and flash my screen up to get started. I will actually start. And Joe, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Yep,
Yep.
all good. By the way, I have Joe Prendergast here. Joe works with us on the CRE agent side, helping build on behalf of clients. Many of you met Leonard last time, but Joe also comes from my ACRE world. So it's good to have Joe on. Joe will stand in as proxy for some of the things that we do today, but largely will just be here for moral support. So what you're looking at is this Multiplier Framework app, this free app that we built to help the industry begin to map the work we do. If you didn't come to our last workshop, we have this philosophy that you can't apply AI to your work until you understand the work that you do. And in a pre-AI world, we would have created a free Excel spreadsheet that all of you could have used to map this, and instead we created an app. And this app, in essence, helps you walk through what we call the multiplier framework. Again, if you didn't come to the last workshop, come to multiplier.adventuresinCRE.ai and you'll see this framework. And basically, it's a framework to help you begin thinking about how you use AI in your day-to-day. And in our last workshop, Michael joined us and we just quickly looked at a roadmap for him. Now, I went ahead and I created a roadmap for underwriting. And this workshop's about looking at what AI solutions relate to underwriting. But we start this with understanding the work that we do in underwriting. Now, underwriting covers all four of those major areas that we talked about. We underwrite in development, asset management, acquisitions, and brokerage. And so I did my best to create a deliverable, an underwritten asset value. And some of the tasks, although I would not say that this is comprehensive, some of the tasks that we do in underwriting, it's things like if we're living in an acquisitions or development world, we're going to do some investment criteria, fit check. Regardless of our functional area, there's going to be some underwriting of, say, the leases or of the rent roll. We're going to need to clean up a rent roll to produce in multifamily or hotel or short-term leases. We're going to want a unit mix table. In long-term leases, we're going to want some rent schedules. And we're going to want to clean up our historicals. And that's a very manual process. We're going to want to do research to derive our inputs. In our long-term leases or even our short-term leases, we're going to want to assess the tenant credit quality. If it's a multifamily case, we're going to be looking at what our collections are and the probability that we're going to collect near 100% or not. And on the long-term credit side, what's the probability that each one of our tenants meet their lease obligations over the term of their respective leases? There will be some, in our underwriting stage, there's going to be some, call it physical condition assessment, perhaps developing CapEx plans. And then, of course, building a pro forma cash flow model from that work to derive some value and then maybe a sensitivity. So the deliverable here is an underwritten asset with some value. And if you recall from the framework, once we've done that, then we want to quantify the impact of automating each one of these steps. And I did this in, again, a very simple way. What I said, okay, I'm sitting in an acquisitions role and I want to acquire 2 assets this year. And if I acquire 2 assets, I'm going to earn, actually, 2 assets, and I'm going to earn $400,000 of acquisition fees, for instance. Okay. And in order to close 2 assets this year, I actually need to underwrite 200, or at least I need to look at 200 assets. Doesn't mean I do everything on all 200 of those assets. And so therefore I say to myself, okay, I'm going to do this process at 200 times a year. That's $2,000 per time or $400,000 in acquisition fees. Okay. And then what I do is I come through each one of these steps and I say, okay, in order to produce that value, how many times am I going to do each one of these steps? And so, for instance, I'm going to look at 200 deals, and I'm going to spend 10 minutes every time I look at a deal. And so I'm going to spend 33 hours to get these two closed deals. I'm going to spend 16 hours underwriting leases. I'm going to spend 25 hours parsing rent rolls and creating unit mix tables or rent schedules. I'm going to spend 50 hours organizing historical financials. I'm going to spend 50 hours building cash flow models. And now I can quantify the impact of automating any of these steps. Okay. Now, we can all disagree on exactly how I quantified them. It's more the exercise itself. Each one of us run a different process. Once I have quantified each one of these steps, then I come into, and this is where we're going to spend the balance of our time today. We want to understand, where is there an overlap between the tasks themselves and the AI solutions. And I'm using AI very loosely, automation solutions. And most of the ones that we're going to talk about either today or you'll find in our catalog, most of those solutions are powered either entirely or somewhat by generative AI. Okay. And so we're going to look through each one of these, and I'm going to give you some ideas for AI solutions that are medium or above in feasibility. If I don't bring it up, it either means that we run out of time or I view it as lower feasibility. And when I say feasibility, what I'm saying is what is the probability or what is the complexity of partially or entirely automating that task using some form of an AI solution, either something I build myself or something I pull off the shelf? What's the complexity of that? And if it's incredibly complex, it means that the quality of the output will be lower than what I would like, and or the complexity of build will exceed any value from building it. Okay. So let's start with investment criteria fit check. Several years ago, we built at a.cre a custom GPT that did essentially this. And even several years before that, the very first thing that we did at Stablewood, and many of you know I was president of a real estate private equity firm named Stablewood. Some of you actually on this call may work at Stablewood. And we built essentially a machine that did a lot of this stuff. It's like, how can we take work off of the plate of our people to lift them up and allow them to focus their attention on things that matter most? And one of the very first things we said is, okay, how can we get to a yes or no as quickly as possible? We even built this app that we shared with brokers that allowed them to see whether a deal was a pass or not. Which, by the way, was a colossal failure because brokers don't like to hear that. They want to talk to you and pitch you on why it's, they disagree with us, which is fine. That was ended up being a good thing, because one of the roles that we play as humans in all of this is to build relationships. And so that was important. But this is investment criteria fit check. So if I'm sitting on a development team, I'm sitting on an acquisitions team, and a deal hits my inbox, I want to very quickly be able to say yes or no. Okay. And today there's a lot of ways that we can do this. We built a custom GPT at a.cre, and years before that we did something similar without AI at Stablewood in the early days. I would do this here today. For you all, probably the simplest is to just use a prompt in Claude. And I have a prompt here. If you're an AI Edge member, by the way, this is one of the prompts. We put out now over 100 prompts. One of the prompts, I think, is called buy box. Yeah, rapid OM screening against your buy box. There's a prompt here. If you're not an AI Edge member, you can join for free and access these prompts. So prompt number 7, rapid OM screening. And so I just created a quick prompt, and I imagine that my buy box was related to single tenant retail. And this is kind of messy, I apologize, but in essence, the buy box inside this prompt goes, is it a single tenant retail deal? Is my purchase price between 2 and 20 million? Is it in a metro area with at least 500,000 people? Does the lease expire in the next 36 months? And so and this is specific to like this concept of a strategy. What I'm looking for is blend and extends. So short-term lease, and then I negotiate some extension of the lease with the tenant. And in single tenant retail, where it's all about credit and term, if I can extend the term out, I'm going to be able to compress my cap rate lower because there's less risk in that deal, and therefore I get a higher value. And so it's kind of a well-worn strategy in SDNL retail. So I say, okay, does it have a lease that's less than 36 months? And then I'm looking for national name brand tenants and not franchisee. Okay, so I've got this. And then there's, again, this prompt. If you come to AI Edge, you're going to see the buy box, and you can take this prompt and adapt it for yourself. And then I'm just going to pull in an OM. I created a fictitious OM for a Starbucks. And I just pull it in and I run it. And this is going to do some work. And by the way, this is not anything that almost everyone on the call knows this process. The quality of my instructions, the quality of my data is going to determine the quality of the output. And the output here is quite simple. Do I spend more time on this deal or not? Now, while this is running, I want to share something that I think is how we are going to work in the future. And I'll start with a X post by a guy named Boris Cherny. So Boris is one of the creators of Claude Code. And if you don't know what Claude Code is, it's taking the world by storm right now. On our team at CRE Agents, our developers are able to do 4 or 5 times as much work because of Claude Code. And it's really over the last 90 days that this has become a thing. And the reason I pulled this up, and Boris, is there's a point he makes that I think really relates to us. And as you think about it, like, how does AI affect me in the coming months and years? His second uh, his second piece of the thread, he says, I also run 5 to 10 Claudes in parallel with my local Claudes. What that means is that he's running 5 processes, 10 processes at once. And that's how I've begun working over the last year. Michael was here in Miami with me last week, and I kind of showed him how that works. In essence, you see here all these tabs open. Every one of these tabs could be running something for me. So imagine we just did this, okay, and that was all fine and good, and ultimately it recommends a pass. And by the way, pass in this case is actually go, so I probably should have used different terminology. But a pass means it's either a pass or a fail. It passes that criteria. In essence, this one is probably a go. Okay, this is a deal that we would pursue. Imagine I have 5 offering memorandums that hit my whatever in a 10-minute period. I could run all 5 of these at once. And that gets to Boris's comment about he's running 5 processes at one time. Imagine you, and this, by the way, is like a repeatable process that you can do over and over and over again. And while we haven't launched CRE Agents, this is where we're going with CRE Agents. So you can see this, we have this concept of you create a task and you'd run something like a rent roll parser. And I would throw in a rent roll. Oops, that's actually a prof. I'd throw in a rent roll for Canyon, and that would run. Oops, yeah, demo error. But that would run, and then I would create a second task, and I'd run a third task, and I'd run a fourth task. I probably just needed to refresh. And you could imagine this like cockpit where you have 3, 4, 5 things running at once. And some of those things might finish in, like this one here finished in what, 60 seconds? Some of them might finish in 5 minutes. Some of them might run for an hour. In fact, when I come to Boris, and you might think of the tech world as probably being 18 to 24 months ahead of where we are in commercial real estate, he has some of these processes that he says run all day. Well, we're not there yet. I don't trust the output of anything, any of my like bespoke things that are running all day, but I absolutely trust something that runs about 20 minutes. And so I could have, let's go to another one. So if I come back to our map, that was investment criteria check. Let's do underwrite a lease. Actually, let's go to rent roll in the interest of time. Okay, so let's imagine that I have 2 deals on my plate right now, and I've got messy rent rolls. And they look something like, let's do these ones here. All right, so let's say it looks something like this. Okay, so this would be my first rent roll. Okay. And this is a pretty clean one. This is a Yardi rent roll. For those who have built unit mix tables from this would probably take us, what, 10, 15 minutes? Maybe less than that, maybe more. And then you have something like this. This is a PDF. And let's see here. So actually, let me share you. I'll show the Excel version of it so I can, yeah, okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and minimize the tenant names so that we don't see the names of the individuals. Okay. Okay, we've all seen these ones. Okay. Complete mess. And this takes forever. Now, there are tools out there to improve this. And so that's an example of one that I'll use. The one I'm going to use is called roll. Although if you use here, let's see, let's go to find solutions. Let's just type in a rent roll. Let's see if there's any others. Yeah, Prada AI, roll, Fresco, which I haven't used. We could also create a prompt, although I would question whether that would work. At CRE Agents, we our rent roll parser is like a 5 agent system where you do this chunking thing. You send pieces of the rent roll to a series of AI agents who then do their portion of the work that comes back to an agent who like consolidates. And then you have a validation agent that reviews, and then that validation passes any issues that it finds to a cleanup agent who cleans it up, and then it returns like a parse rent roll. And so you couldn't necessarily do this in a Claude and have high confidence in the output, but a tool like Roll certainly could. So let's just pull in, let's pull in the messiest one that we had there. Yeah, let's see. Pull that messiest one in. And then this tool has this anonymized tenant, so it'll come back with the tenant names not included. And okay, so while this is running, let's again imagine the concept of like a cockpit. Let's throw in a few more rent rolls. So let's throw in that Canyon 35, and then let's throw in that example Yardi. So, all right, so I've got a few of these running, and depending on the complexity, these sort of tools will usually take 2 to 5 minutes to run. So let's let those run in our cockpit while it goes, and let's come back. So we're cleaning up rent rolls. I've got 3 properties I'm working on right now. Then we need to clean up historicals. Now this one is a little harder. CRE Agents, we created a task that does that. In fact, I think it looks something like, yeah, this one here, where it takes this one takes a P&L and adds a T1, T3, T6, T12. There's another tool called Quick Data. Quick Data does this sort of property income statement parsing. But the point is you want to clean up that messy, and it looks like this. Let's see if I can find one. Yeah, so right, and this is a pretty clean one, and you're going to want to map these individual line items to a chart of accounts, and you're going to want T1, 3, 6, and 12. And so those are a few tools. I wonder if there's any others in our library for fun. Um, I'm surprised the team hasn't added quick data. Well, quick data is one that does this pretty well. Okay, so that was historical. By the way, has this done yet? Nope, still running. Okay. All right, so then we get to researching market comps, rents, expenses, and cap rates. And this is a fun one. Okay, so on the rent side, I could use something like Hello Data. On multifamily, so multifamily rents, I could use something like Hello Data. Fundrise recently launched a tool called Real AI that is kind of interesting. That could help. It's a called a data aggregation across various things. So that one's kind of fun. Um, uh, what else in rents? We've got the typical Yardi matrices. We got the co-stars that you can call it, just go pull in comps and then use, say, prompts in a ChatGPT or a Claude to consolidate those. Um, but what I want to show is this idea that anyone can do. And this is something you have to build on your own, but there's not a person on this call that couldn't build this on their own using our favorite app builder, Replit. So if you are a non-technical person and you want to create something that can add value to your team, you can use this thing, Replit. And you've seen, in fact, if you're an AI Edge member and saw the skill drop, we created in that skill drop this last month, this New York City property finder. And what this does, again, built in Replit, is it brought in energy usage data from New York City. So New York City reports this energy usage data by property. And they report that for free. You can access it. You can download the CSV files of that on the internet. You can find across all of New York City like property specific data from tax assessor. You can find lien data. And so what we did in this exercise was we pulled in all of that data here just with prompts. And then we said, hey, we want to figure out what might be distressed properties. And so where has energy usage fallen more than 30% over the last 12 months and or has a tax lien and or has a lease pendant versus give us the information about the properties. And from that, we can come and, let's look at, I don't know, medical office in the Bronx. And then the tiers are the tiers of potential distress. Now, that's the sort of thing that in this AI Edge skill drop we taught how to do. What I want to do together today, just quickly, we won't finish it because it would take longer than the 30 minutes we have left. But imagine I'm sitting in an acquisitions team, or actually it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm in an asset management team, I'm in a brokerage team, and I want to create my own comp set. So I don't want to rely on CoStar or whatever else. And I get every single day data. It might be that OMs hit my inbox. And while I can't share that with anyone else, I mean, all of us do, right? We create our own Excel files that kind of like are the data that we receive. We also have owned properties or properties that we analyze and we make some judgments about. And all of that is data that today lives in folders somewhere in Excel files. Some of us have begun to develop discipline, maybe to put it in a Google sheet. And if you're really sophisticated, you've created an Airtable and maybe but we could create that sort of app in Replit, any one of us on this call. And the first step is I need a prompt to kick this thing off. And so I will generally pick my LLM of choice. Doesn't matter. In this case, I use Gemini because I had Claude and ChatGPT running with other stuff. And I said, please help me draft a prompt for having Replit's AI agent build a simple multifamily rent comp builder app that does the following. It's going to monitor a specific Gmail inbox. So my thinking is I was like designing this in my head. And by the way, a lot of this designing we do as we go. Okay. So, but in this case, I was designing it just quickly in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this like Gmail inbox, acquisitions at firmridge.com or whatever. And in that inbox, I'm going to have this thing monitor that inbox. And it's going to be looking for data that could be part of this database that I'm going to build. Anytime an email arrives, check if it contains an offering memorandum file. But it doesn't even have to be that. It could be a just sold or a just listed. I mean, it could be anything. It could be whatever. Okay, but it's going to monitor the inbox for something specific. In this case, I'm going to say it's going to monitor for OMs that I've received. If it does, parse the file, then send to an LLM and ask it to extract the following values. And then I just put some quick values of what might be part of a rent comp database. Property name, address, year built, number of units, multifamily property type, unit mix table with all units and their associated beds, baths, size, and rent. And you all can disagree on what the right fields are for that. I probably should have more fields. I could get much more complex, but this is just an exercise we're doing together. Return the values, save to a database. Notice I didn't say what database. Save to a database. Create a tool to query this database. You could imagine, though, in a future state where I actually might plug it into something else that I'm doing and use that as the data source for this other task. That other task might be to populate an Excel file and I need a rent number. Let me do that, right? But for now, it's just, hey, I can just query this database. And then it comes back and it does some thinking, and then I do some iterating. Here's the prompt, by the way, the first version. And I said, what I ultimately want is a comprehensive multifamily rent comp database that builds over time that I can then query. Replit is its own built-in database, OpenAI integration, Gmail integration, et cetera. What I'm missing in this prompt, what am I missing in this prompt to get the best results from the first? And it drafts a revised prompt based on that. I haven't even read this prompt, okay? But what you would do is you iterate on this prompt. This is like the first instructions that you're going to give now to your AI coding companion. And this thing is going to build that app for you. Now, I have two options when I get here. Option one is I can start in design. And you may want to start here. If you start in design, What's going to happen is you're only going to see the visual and user experience, and you're not going to see the engine that powers it. So in an Excel context, this would be the equivalent of I'm building a new real estate financial model. My very first step is to open a fresh workbook and create all of the worksheets, summary worksheet, assumptions, monthly cash flow, annual cash flow, whatever our tabs are, and then adding headers, adding labels, adding formatting. That would be design. And so if what you are building for yourself, this internal tool, the design is really important, I would start here. If it's less important, which this app, it's less important. This app is really about the back end. This is, in the Excel example, it's the formulas that I write that matter. It's the logic that takes inputs and turns them into outputs. That's what matters. And in that case here, I'm going to start an app. Now I can start in plan mode. If I start in plan mode, that means that no action will be performed and I will have a conversation, but I already had that conversation here. Now you might ask, why did I do that here? Why not just start here? Because Replit's a lot more expensive, okay? So I can use Gemini with my $20 a month subscription and effectively get unlimited conversations, responses back. Replit, you'll see here in a minute, charges for every single response. And sometimes it's a handful of pennies, sometimes it's a handful of dollars, and it can add up meaningfully over time. Like for instance, at CRE Agents, we use Replit to do a lot of our prototyping. We're building this onboarding experience right now as we approach launch, and we wanted like an interactive AI-powered onboarding. Well, I want to be able to communicate to the team exactly what I want. In fact, I want it to work when I communicate to the team. And so I build it in Replit, and then I hand it off to them. A Multiplier Framework. This here, 100% built in Replit by the a.c.re and the CRE Agents team. So there is not a person on this call who can't build something in Replit, and the more you do it, the better you get. But coming back to the point about cost, it can get quite expensive. I think we'll approach $1,000 in Replit usage this month because again, every single action. So I start here, and then I come over here. I'm just going to drop that prompt in. I'm going to put it on build, and then say, let's call this app multifamily rent comp engine. And I'll start. And what's happening now is there is an agentic process. There's a team of AI agents that is going to write code and build this app for us, or for at least the first version. What is at the end of this first version, it will not work. And if we were to build this together, this would probably be a Saturday afternoon exercise to get it to the point where it's working. And then it would be a several week exercise where you're iterating back and forth because stuff breaks, it doesn't work. That's just the nature of building tools. Okay, but it's gonna work. So let's come back to our process map here. Where are we at? Yeah, so that's what I put for research, market comps, rents, expenses. The reality is there's not a lot of great AI tools for this for a couple reasons. The main reason being that the data itself is sitting either behind paid gardens, and therefore you can't really access it to build a tool, or someone else couldn't access it to build a tool that you and I could use. And or like data is really valuable, and so people don't want to just give it up. And so my recommendation when it comes to this is build your own. Now here's another one actually. If you're looking for more ideas, I shared that Real AI tool. I kind of dug into it a little bit as I was looking at one of the exercises because it has some rent comps, and so I pushed on it like, hey, where are you getting this rent comp data from? Well, it's scraping websites. And I don't know what the legality of that is, so I won't get into that, but it's scraping websites. But if you think about it, what you and I often will do in a very manual way is we'll go to, let's say we're in student housing, we have a comp set that we've put together somehow. We'll go to, we could go manually to each one of those websites and pull in the comps. Well, Claude could do that, or ChatGPT could do that, or Perplexity could do that as well. You give the 5 websites, say, hey, here are the values I want you to find. Go find those for me. And you could call that a poor man's rent comp engine. Okay. Uh, that is research market comps, rents, expenses. Uh, Tenant credit quality and concentration. I don't have something great for this one, and so I'm gonna keep moving on from it. Assess physical condition. This is a fun one. First off, there's a lot that you can do with, say, a property condition report. Property condition reports come back as dozens and dozens of pages. And there are certainly the 4 or 5 or 6 things that you look for. So you could create a custom GPT for that. At CRE Agents, we have this whole task that takes in a property condition report and outputs whatever. But there's another one that we shared on AI Edge that I think is kind of fun. That is, here we go. Yeah, okay. Quick and dirty AI roof condition assessment. All right. So, um, this is the sort of thing that either, the type of thing that we would build in as a task in Siri agents, but also the sort of thing that you could build your own little thing in Replit. You could just simply use a prompt like this on a Claude or a Chat GPT. But here's how this works and give you kind of the vision for it. So I'm going to copy the entire prompt. And let's do this one in, actually, I think it needs to be, no, it can be in any. Let's do it in Claude though, because I have ChatGPT set up for something else. So I'm going to put the entire prompt in. Now, we created this in AI Edge so that the prompt itself should tell you what to do. Okay, I'm on a PC. Oh, it needs an address. Let's find an address here. Let's find an Amazon warehouse in Dallas. Okay, let's use this address right here. So that's our address. And so what this is going to do is this is going to first have us go and grab a screenshot of the roof. Okay. Um, so I open this. Here's our address. Let's zoom in. Here's our roof. And you can question how viable this is. But here we go. Here's my roof. And what the prompt is, if we come and dig into it, and you'll notice that this is highly experimental and a fun test of what AI can or can't do. This is going to, before analyzing the image, search the, use common public sources. Oh yeah, here we go. This is a visual, non-invasive, satellite-based observation, not a condition survey. Base all conclusions strictly on what's visible when uncertainty. So what it's looking for is the roof type, visible condition indicators such as color variation, inconsistent surfacing, apparent patching or repair zones, ponding water, staining or discoloration, debris accumulation, rooftop. Now, where I got that list was from my kind of template boilerplate property condition report, where if you've dealt in due diligence, what happens is you have an inspector who is not a roof expert and will just simply make observations about the roof, and then we'll make a recommendation whether you should get a roof inspection or not. Now, if I'm sitting pre-LOI and I have no information from my broker partner on the roof condition, and it's a X-year-old building, I don't know, and I want a quick judgment on the roof, I could do this in a semi-automated way. And that was the idea behind this thing here. I can see your screenshot. The roof is clearly how I noticed the imagery data is not visible at the bottom. Oh, that's right. I was supposed to get it. Supposed to also give it a date, which is there. One second. I didn't follow the instructions. Let me give it another screenshot. And so it's going to look at the date of the image. It's going to go and see if it can figure out how old this building is. Now, unfortunately, Claude only has web search for this. At CRE Agents, when we run this, we pull in a property tax record for the address so that we have the actual construction date. Claude doesn't necessarily have that, so Claude is going to do its best. He's going to search the internet and he'll come up and probably be right, but not necessarily. We won't have high confidence. But we do know that this image is from 2026 Airbus. Interesting, yeah. So this is a brand new picture. And the Amazon Fulfillment Center at this address was established in 2015. Okay, so we have a date, making the building approximately 10 years old. A tenant improvement project involving conveyor installation was completed in 2021. Though no records of roof replacement were identified in publicly available sources. I do question where it got that from. These tools have gotten a lot better at not hallucinating imaginary information and simply saying what they don't know, but I do question that. And so that's why if I were to build this like production ready, I would want the data source that I was 100% confident in. Property tax record, and perhaps an old property condition report might be. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we could use that would improve the quality of the data. But the observation, roof's flat, single ply membrane system with a light colored white or light gray surface consistent with thermoplastic, TPO, PVC. The roof surface presents a generally uniform color. Some linear surface variations are visible and so forth. Like how confident am I in this? I don't know. That's why I called it experimental. It's an interesting exercise. Many of you have gone and gotten like medical, what would you even call that, Michael? Blood tests. What do you call that? And then you give that to ChatGPT and you see what it comes back with. And go ahead, Michael.
I was just say, you mean ChatGPT, my primary care doctor?
Yeah, exactly. So always be skeptical of the output. That's kind of my point here. But it doesn't mean that it can't be valuable. And so that was like a fun exercise that I did. And so that might relate to, call it, physical condition. I do think, though, once you get into due diligence, this can be very good at say abstracting your property condition report or your phase one into a one-page summary. Say, hey, here are the 12 things that I want you to know. Maybe in your investment committee memo, you have like a property condition section and you need a quick write-up on each one. This sort of technology is very good for that sort of thing. But to the extent that you wanted to build like an automation that could be part of that engine where you're running multiple things at once, that is an example of something that could be that. So that's physical condition. By the way, let's see how our little rent comp thing is going. All right, so this is its first draft when it comes back. This is dummy data at this point. So this gives that visual, right? And why I say if you're building with Replit, sometimes you want to start with the design because this is going to give you something that may or may not be what you want. It's not finished. I know it's not because this button still is showing stop. And I could read through the log and see what it has done thus far. This is a testing exercise here. So it's actually pulling up the app. You can see it clicking around. This is when it's testing certain things as it builds. So let's let that continue to run. All right, pro forma cash flow model. So this is another one where we can build a task to take data that's already been assembled. So that data may have actually been assembled through this series of previous things and then populate a cash flow model. And we first experimented with this years ago, this custom GPT. In fact, look, it was powered by 4.0. So in the grand time of things, I don't know. I guess that's only been probably a year, but it feels like forever ago. I'm going to turn this to 5.2. And what this does is it's going to take an offering memorandum and it's going to populate inputs in a template Excel file. And in this case, we use a.cre's STNL valuation model. So let me do that. One moment. Okay, so I have a OM here. Oh, let's use that fake Starbucks that we did earlier. So if you recall, we had that Starbucks, and the Starbucks was apparently a go. So we drop this in. It's going to extract attributes from that file. Now, if you're curious, let me show you how this thing is built. So what it does is it has, oh, interesting. Um, I haven't looked at it in a little while. It's missing some files, even though I think it works because I ran it as I tested in prep for this. Yeah, it's running. Okay. So you see how it is identified. So cell G7 on the summary tab, I mapped that. So I told this thing cell G7 is property name. And so it gives it a property name, Starbucks Chula Vista, and on down. And all of these are the inputs, and those inputs would come from someplace. And I've completed all 7 input sections. Here's what it did. By the way, this is a task that if I were to use just an LLM like this, I would use Claude rather than ChatGPT. But yeah, for this sort of reason, ChatGPT just is not good with Excel files. Let's see if if it works now. Okay. So what it did is it just populated blue font cells, like many of us have. Now let's say that I don't know. Let's do something here. Um, I have here this thing called Claude for Excel. It's a Excel add-in that if you're a Claude, I think it's Claude Teams or Pro member, you can use. Let me log into it real quick. I was logged in and it logged me out. Um, Claude for Excel is the best in Excel AI that exists out there. There's others, Index, Shortcut. Man, the Claude for Excel is so incredibly good. Um, Bear with me while I show you what this looks like. Come on. So what I'm doing while you're waiting is I'm logging in to Claude again, and it's sending codes to phones and all that. So thanks for your patience. 698-937.
Should also check in on how roll is doing.
Oh yeah, yeah, good call. Let's see. Yeah, so all 3 of our rent rolls are done. So there were 3 rent rolls that we sent over. Thanks for the reminder, Michael. Yeah, so we sent Jester Square, Canyon 35, and Bella Vista. They would have taken only 2 to 5 minutes. So I just forgot. So what's cool about this is, and these are older rent rolls. This rent roll's from 2023. If this was a fresh rent roll, it would give me a 12-month lease expiration schedule. It builds a unit mix table based on just the unit types that are in the rent roll. It's got this like copy ChatGPT prompt thing, which is pretty cool, which I can then copy this and put it into, say, a ChatGPT, and it just gives the rent roll to ChatGPT. And then here are the units itself, but then I can download it in 3 formats. So I can download it as an Excel file, which looks something like this. So now, remember how messy that file was? No, this was the Yardi, but still. And then here's the unit mix table. Call it a summary of facts. But I have a clean rent roll that I can use for all sorts of things. It also though has JSON. So JSON is a format that AI really likes. So imagine that you have your own system. Maybe you build an app with Replit. Maybe you're using CRE agents. You could use this JSON and give it to the AI And that AI can use that much better than it could use, say, an Excel file. This Canyon 35 was a PDF, and that was that really messy one. Again, this was from 2020, so that's why we don't have any forward. There's our unit mix table. So this is a pretty cool tool. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. In the meantime, let's come and finish our Excel. All right, so we've got this Starbucks. Come on. I don't know why I did this. And say build a summary. The quality of the output is going to be a function of the quality of my prompt, and I'm doing very little with my prompt in the interest of time. But build a summary worksheet that summarizes the um, cash flow and returns and valuation of this asset. Make it dynamic to do changes. And I have two options, ask before edits or accept all edits. I would normally ask before edits and I'd have like a conversation back and forth to decide ultimately what I want. I'm just going to accept all edits and just let the thing run. I'm using Opus 4.5. That's the most powerful large language model that really exists out there, or certainly for this sort of work. And we'll let that run. Okay, so while this thing is running, let's come back to our. So that's building, call it cash flow models. DCF and direct cap valuation, that's very much a human step in my view. That's where we're validating our inputs and we're making some judgments around what cap rate to use, what assumptions, what changes to assumptions we want to make. That's the refining step that we are best suited for. And then sensitivity scenarios. So I may have said this on our last call, but what makes this technology so incredible is that we can do things faster or more of the same thing. And one of those things that we do is we put inputs into boxes to get an output, and that output would be considered a scenario. So imagine we have our base case scenario, and those are our current inputs. And then in traditional real estate, we'll have a downside and we'll have an upside. And then maybe we'll do 5 scenarios, and that will go in some scenario analysis. But if you think about it, those are only 5 scenarios. What if I did 10,000 scenarios? Now we're getting into the concept of Monte Carlo. Well, this technology makes that so much easier. Whether it's whether that's iterating through Excel or even better, drafting Python code to create a bespoke model for a specific deal that then runs 10,000 simulations and gives you some distribution of returns. And in essence, you have 10,000 different scenarios. So this is the sort of thing where I'm not familiar with any tools that are making this easy right now, but either you can build it or those things will absolutely come as this technology matures in our industry. So let's finish up. Let's see, rent comp. Yeah, this is continuing to run. When I finish this, we'll share the project, the Replit project. I don't want to share the actual app because the data itself, none of us can actually use. And OM data, right, is specific to the person. And now I'm getting into the legal side that I'm not an expert on. But the project itself, the Replit project that you could take and then plug into your own process, we'll go ahead and share on AI Edge so that you all can use it. And with that, I have, call it my solutions. Let's go ahead and add these here. So fit check, I'm using Claude. And let's say that this is going to save me about 50% of my time. And I'm going to call it advanced because I'm going to have to draft a prompt that really works. And the time savings moderate. So I add that solution. Underwriting leases. Okay. And I'm going to use here I would use CRE agents for this one, but for now, I'll just leave that off. Parsing my rent roll, that's the one that I think we use roll for that one. And this one is fairly significant, and this is as easy as they come. Yeah, I mean, Barry. So add that solution. And then let's see, let's do comps. I don't know. Let's throw hello data in and let's say it'll be kind of moderate time savings there, moderate, and then build it. Let's use our custom GPT. I think I have it here. There we go. And that one's moderate, moderate, somewhat. All right, we'll call that good. Anything else? Clean. Yeah. So then I continue to step four. So coming back to the framework in the last 3 minutes, don't do all of them at once. This has been an overwhelming 50 something minutes. I've shown you a cajillion things and that like, pick one. So in my case here, I'm just going to simply pick parse rent rule. It's easy. It's going to save me, whatever. In this case, it's saving me $33,000 a year if my impact assessment is right. I hit next. I kick off my roadmap and I put it into implementing. Implementing means, okay, I'm going to go either build that tool or I'm going to sign up for the tool. I'm going to learn how to use it. Once I've done that, I'm going to iterate. Iterate means I'm going to start using it on my day-to-day and I'm going to learn what works and what doesn't work. Implementing, depending on the complexity, is anywhere from a day to a month. Iterating might be anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months. Once I'm happy with it, I move it to automated, and now I can start to see, call it my multiplier. So anyway, let me stop. Any parting questions? I didn't leave a ton of time in there at the end. What I'll do is if there were questions in the chat that I wasn't able to get to, we'll draft a response to those questions and we'll post it as part of the video itself when we share that. It'll be shared to a.cre. It'll be shared to AI Edge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Someone asked for the Claude summary page. Paul, the Claude summary page. What are we? Yeah, Robert asked, are all these tools SaaS models? Not necessarily. AI isn't really SaaS anymore because every action has an associated cost. So things like Claude, while they have a monthly membership, you're going to bump into credit limits and then you pay for additional credit. Um, the something like Roll is similar, where it's like a lot of these will give you a certain number of free credits. Roll like gives you some free credits to start. ChatGPT and Claude will give you free credits, although those you got to be careful because they will train their models on that. Claude and ChatGPT will. And so don't think about it so much as SaaS, as think about it as usage for value. And so that's why this impact is so important. It's like, okay, if I'm using this thing and it's saving me 20,000 a year, okay, I'm not going to pay more than 1,000 for it or something like that. Now I get a sense of my multiplier effect. Oh yeah, yeah, Nicholas, yeah, great question. Let me pull that up. Um, let's see what Claude created here. This was Claude's output. Used my same formatting, which is nice. Nice little cash flow summary here. Year 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 valuation. It's not bad. We need to validate it to see if it's accurate or not. It added blue font cells here, which we don't want, so we'd want to turn those black. But we do know that they're linked, so I can just turn those black. But yeah, um, great question.
Spencer,
Mhm.
you've been flipping around between certain LLMs, and I think just on behalf of everyone, you're using certain LLMs for certain things. Certain LLMs are better for certain tasks than others. I guess I know we're hitting over time, but I just because everybody's most familiar and are using them now, would you be able to give us, an overview of what are the best applications of using ChatGPT, if you're using Claude, if you're using Gemini, Grok, what is your take on the best use cases for each of them and when are they most appropriate to use?
Um, so this changes every like 3 months. Um, January 2026. Claude is far and away the best tool for the type of work that we do.
Hmm.
Um, it tends to just work. The tools that it has, it's like the built-in tools that it uses in order to do things like creating Word documents or Excel files is far and away better than Gemini or ChatGPT right now. With that said, I use Claude for work, for like technical things. I use ChatGPT for brainstorming. It's a bit more expansive in brainstorming. Claude will sometimes he'll hit an end. It'll be like, I don't know what to tell you anymore. It'll literally say that. Grok is the most expansive. Well, first off, Grok, we use Grok's through API because it's the most cost effective relevant relative to the quality of what it puts out. So for instance, the multiplier framework, anytime you hit one of those AI buttons, it's actually using Grok 4.1 fast to produce the result because it
Hmm.
produces a good enough result and it's significantly less expensive and it doesn't require us to use, say, a non-US open source model. Gemini is great for design, but most of you aren't going to do like coding design, but Gemini is really good for that. I mean, so that's my preference, but that's one of those that people have opinions about that are very strong. So I don't want to push too hard on them, but yeah.
It, just one other to add to that list. Robin asked about Copilot. I know a lot of people in bigger, firms are using Copilot Enterprise. Any thoughts on Copilot?
Yeah, to the extent that your Copilot license allows you to flip between large language models, you have some flexibility. Also, there's different like levels of what you can or can't do with Copilot, so it's hard to answer that. If all you have is Copilot chat, there's not a lot you can do outside of just having some prepackaged prompts that produce something of interest. But if you have the ability to create mini apps, I forget what they called in Copilot, but in essence, the equivalent of what in Claude are called artifacts, or a related concept, custom GPT in Chat GPT, then you can do more. Yeah, great question.
Can I just say my one remark from this hour, Spencer, you pulled up Boris's note on like using multiple Claudes at once. I don't know if you noticed, but you were like doing that. And so that mindset of like, let's not use it to just do something super simple, but these are things that can be running simultaneously, like doing important work, was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I think that's if there's any takeaway, and I know we're 4 minutes over, so you're welcome to go. But my parting comment is this: the next iteration of AI for all of us is that we will do micro tasks, but numerous micro tasks all at once. And so we will sit there and we'll be in essence sitting in a chair and we're orchestrating these little micro tasks that go from 30 seconds to 20 minutes. You get beyond 20 minutes and you just can't trust the output.
Hmm.
So we'll be orchestrating those, but that is the easiest way to multiply your output. Just do two things at once rather than one, and you've doubled your output, even if those things take the same amount of time as it take you to do. So, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to continue to do these workshops in the coming months. My hope is that we can add value to you. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Otherwise, we'll see everyone around.